I don't know about you guys, but in the spirit of dead internet theory, I am finding the current phase that we're in as a culture, it's becoming more and more uncanny and unhinged, and it feels like the mental health of the average person is so poised on this knife's edge, it's like they are two shakes away from a full-blown MK Ultra meltdown. Even on the internet, you really can't be sure if you're talking to someone in good faith, or if they're a bot, or if they're a shill, or even a Fed. I mean, you're seeing CIA-style consensus cracking happening in almost every online community, to the point where, can you even be sure if a lot of these social movements are organic? Can you be sure that the search results you're getting on Google are not curated for the express purpose of influencing your decision-making? This is the new paradigm. It's this sterilized, astroturfed, bot-ridden, boiled, lifeless imitation of what was once a society where free speech was actually a thing. Where people were exchanging ideas, if not through debate, then just through memes, you know? And the idea that there is still this left-right dichotomy, this pendulum by which the political direction of society is balanced, somehow we're beyond that now, and it's confusing. I mean, I think a lot of people are finding themselves just rudderless, directionless. We exist in this mouse utopia, this gray world where, as I mentioned in one of my other videos, I mean, the clowns have turned into demons. Clown world is behind us because memes aren't funny anymore, comedians aren't funny. The lines between propaganda and entertainment are blurred in this kind of twisted Bernaysian fashion. Video games are just another tool of cultural engineering, just like the film industry is now, and music. There really is no political discussion to be had. There's just a woke jackboot pressing down on your face eternally. And not only has this been completely normalized, you better smile and you better celebrate Pride Month and pretend that the 6'2" stubbled man in a dress with a baton kind of waving in your face and saying, "Celebrate me." I mean, you better smile and you better celebrate and pretend that everything's fine, lest you be on the receiving end of justice, quote unquote, state-sponsored violence, so that you may learn tolerance. And that is kind of what's going on here. When even Fox News is flying the pride flag and has pride graphics on, and there's just no escaping it. I mean, the idea that conservative politicians even exist, they are a joke. Beyond a joke. I mean, in 2022, I am a fan of a lot of right-wing philosophy, paleoconservatism, and stuff like this, but there's no point in even identifying with the right. There is no right. And the only definition that exists of the right, at least anymore, is the mainstream woke definition, which may as well be synonymous with fucking troglodyte. It's the worst possible interpretation of what really are just common sense values. The bread and circuses have ceased, the red team versus blue team, boomer tier reality TV, political struggle, which never seems to ever go anywhere except down this path of postmodernization. I mean, that's kind of over. We are under a tyrannical system now, whether you even noticed or not. Maybe you don't give a shit, but we are really living through a phase where these basic principles, which a lot of the time it's just evident that a man is a man, a woman is a woman. People should have the right to take care of their family, the right to value and defend your children's innocence and protect them from degeneracy. Owning things in the Western free market is fine, and capitulation to people freaking out about being victims is not an obligation. You don't even have to do that. You can tell them to go fuck themselves, you know? Where this is enough to have you lumped in with the most extreme political figures, both alive and historical, right? You know, where it's ridiculous and it's truly an example of gaslighting, right? It's the midwits and it's the Redditors and the women of this society. They are the ones that have created the conditions for this post-clown world. They're dumb enough to think that they're smart, I guess, right? It's midwit theory, you know? I mean, like Baz down the pub with 100 IQ and the gigabrain Spurg, I mean, they're in agreement. They kind of agree in the empirical obviousness of common sense and truth, right? Whereas the midwits are lost in a labyrinth created for them by twisted psychopathic academics and subversive intellectuals, let's just put it that way. They're the perfect prey for the psychopath internet. National, global, you know, cultural engineers, right, who have been working on a project to change the temperature of society across the West for, I'd say, 100 years minimum, maybe more, maybe double. Divine light severed by a lifetime of atheist indoctrination. I mean, what is there to protect the average normgroid from being completely brainwashed? It's over. The war is over. Anyone still fighting now is like the last remnants of resistance. The stormtroopers of the woke corporate globo homo status quo are hunting the streets, and they're looking for the last dissident splinter cells of edgelord millennials. Like, where are they? We have enough power now, we can just go mask off. Execute Order 66, let's take them out, right? But, you know, even with all that said, their victory is not total. It's almost a Pyrrhic victory. And you can see this when you look into the eyes of the shit-lived Karen in HR, right? She has never been more power-crazed and yet uneasy, right? It's this strange cognitive dissonance. And, you know, after the lockdowns and the censorship and the terror and the tyranny inflicted on the average member of society, the average citizen, this woke endgame that we exist it's a nervous endgame, isn't it? Because just under the surface, bubbling away, under those rainbow flags and glitter, and dancing drag children and smiling Afro-trans lesbians, there exists a real, genuine, palpable rage, just simmering away, unable to be expressed, unable to even be defined or acknowledged, but nonetheless exists all the same. In terms of online culture, at least, if it was up to me, things would go back to just a free-for-all of shitposting. Or nobody is a victim because you can just stand up, turn around and walk away from the fucking screen. It's really easy. But if you want to be on the internet, you're gonna have to grow a pair of balls, self-defeating leftist configuration, which will utterly decimate everything. I mean, literally, we will enter some kind of new dystopian dark age, unless the health of the video game industry is restored, and by proxy, the West. So, yeah, I mean, that's how Gamergate's going, if you're wondering. I mean, that's just a quick update. Plea A linguistic power game. I mean, this is the woke definition of debate. Which is very disappointing. I mean, a few years ago, there seemed to be a resurgence of actual online. No, now we're back to the usual boomer duality of absolute pause versus the red brand of milder pause. But we're still gonna advocate for open borders and pay lip service to accusations of racism and, even the Dems are the real racists, am I right? Blah, blah, blah. We're gonna operate within the frame of our enemies who simply want to destroy us. This strategy has not changed in the last 50 years. Not even the natural duality of the universe. We're going to erase it all. Everything will become one. Just one monoculture where no creativity, no ascension. Guess. I've heard this sentiment expressed fairly frequently in the last few years that the internet was the downfall of society, that was a turning point where everything started to unravel. And although I don't completely disagree, I actually think that the internet used to be incredibly comfy. And I remember because, I'm in my 30s, I remember a time when the internet didn't exist. And I remember the atmosphere in our culture at that time. And the early 2000s, I'd say the entire decade of the 2000s also had its charm. Obviously, the 9/11 event, it kind of tainted that decade. I think without 9/11, the 2000s would have been extremely comfy because when the internet was a niche technology, when it was new, and the only people using it were men who were interested in the tech, they were kind of the nerds of the time, right? They were the guys out on the fringe experimenting with this new tech. The thing that really ruined the internet, and I guess you could also say ruined our fucking society, was when normies discovered the internet. And how do they do that? Well, through social media. That really is when things started to take a turn for the worse. And it wasn't clear at the time. You had grassroots social media like MySpace, which, although extremely superficial and obnoxious, to a certain degree, it didn't have the kind of sinister undertones that modern social media has, like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which is just the most insidious blend of propaganda, corporatism, and narcissism. That is modern social media. And they're the ones popularizing all of these new, god-awful social movements. They're the ones sharing hostile feminist and woke memes. They're the ones who are the most vocal propagandists when it comes to consolidating, maintaining, and expanding the clowned internet, right? The new internet, the new status quo. And they're hurting themselves probably more than anyone else, which is the saddest thing. But this is the situation that we're in, that our guys, people that actually care about family, Western culture, civilization, we've lost control of the narrative, and we actually haven't been in control of the narrative for an insanely long time. But things have really accelerated since social media, smartphone technology has come into the fore, because the people that really do control this paradigm, they understand completely how important control of the masses is. It's very, very important. It's always been critical. But the problem is the people in control of the masses right now are insane, borderline satanic, transhumanist ideologues, right, that have truly upsetting plans in mind for humanity. And the thing with them is, it's the fundamentals of leftism, isn't it? It's that because you don't live in accordance with reality, then your crusade becomes having to purge anyone that doesn't agree with your interpretation of reality. Because that's a core tenet of leftist philosophy, really. It's that truth is subjective, right? That's Jacques Derrida, right? That's postmodernism. So it makes sense that women would be the foot soldiers of this new order because, they're highly susceptible to rhetoric. They are masters of crafting narratives themselves. I mean, a woman lives in an emotional world, not one bound by absolute truths. And I'm sure, anyone that's argued with a woman before, you'll probably be astounded and, thunderstruck by the way that they can selectively edit the narrative of their own experience, in some ways just to win the argument. So it's something that the masculine mind has trouble even conceptualizing, and it's kind of funny. But that is it. It's first you purge, you dehumanize, and then you eliminate anyone who doesn't see the world exactly like you do. And in a way, they are kind of aware that human perception and consciousness does shape reality to a certain degree, right? But, there's two ways to go about that. You can either live in accordance with the objective world, right? The physical realm, and look to the lessons of the past, look to the wisdom of, your culture and religion, and try and live, in a humble way in accordance with nature. Or you can reject reality and substitute it with your own mental illness and then force everybody to agree with you. That's one way to go about it, because once all people who are sane and in touch with reality are dead, then I guess you win, right? I guess you win, except you don't win, do you? I mean, it's kind of like the Christians would say, well, hey, now you're in hell. You created your own personal hell. So, the Christians have a point, really, when they say, turn away from God, turn away from the truth, and, you're going to hell. I don't think it's a threat. It's more of like a warning. It's like, guys, you don't want to reject reality. You don't want to reject truth, because all you're going to do is you're going to destroy yourself and you're going to destroy the world. But, in the same way that Eve in the Garden of Eden, being a woman, she's just like, yeah, whatever, right? You don't tell me what to do, Adam. I'm going to eat that fucking apple, right? It's the same thing. I mean, they're doing it now. You turn around and you go, excuse me, feminists, do you understand that if you live a life completely opposed to your own feminine nature, no children, antagonistic to masculinity, that you're going to end up kind of in hell eventually, when you're old, you have no loved ones, no one cares about you, and you've destroyed the world around you through spreading these toxic ideas. I mean, is that really victory? That doesn't sound like victory to me, and yet that's the path that we're on, Every woman on social media can't wait to turn this nightmare, this vision of hell, into a reality. And if you ask them why they want this, you just get a blank stare. It does not compute, It's an NPC reaction, because I don't think they really know what they're actually advocating for. They don't seem to realize that they are being led down a path that can only end in destruction and death and misery. They represent the eternal normie, as the Gnostics put it, the Heilig, right? Normies ruin everything. They really do. And having a society that's kind of tiered and having an upper strata of the culture that is inaccessible to the normie and unsubvertible by outside forces, by external cultural forces, is probably a good idea if you want to have a functioning civilization that lasts more than a couple of hundred years. I think we're learning this right now, because all you have to do is look at the absolute state of the internet and the average moron caterwauling through Twitter or some other fucking cancerous service, right? Demanding that their last remnants of freedom be taken away in the name of anti-racism, or some other mean social cause that really just amounts to egotistical virtue signaling. I mean, you can see just how bad things have got. And these people, they don't have agency. They don't have the ability to actually think critically. So what you do is you control the mob, and the rest of society falls in line, because the mob can be violent. The mob can act as enforcers of the status quo. So that really shows the contrast between the old internet, where it was very libertarian. You could say what you want, total Wild West, ideas being expressed from completely schizoid, crazy shit, in certain forums, to, the left, the right, politically, it was a free-for-all. And that gave the early internet a real sense of appeal. It was very appealing to people who were free speech absolutists, people who wanted to explore fringe ideas. It was great, and we've lost that. And we've lost that because now the internet is saturated with midwits who really have no beliefs of their own. I mean, you can define the left as basically being completely surface level. They are children in a way, intellectually, and they literally will take the side of whoever is expressing the same ideas as their echo chamber. It's just a huge echo chamber where all you do is boost the signal of your side. There is no introspection, there is no critical thinking, and it's incredibly stifling for freedom. I mean, you cannot be free on the internet anymore, and that's so insane that we've actually come to this in such a short time. Because the internet was almost the perfect expression of Western freedom, right? It was a completely unmoderated marketplace of ideas. But now, I mean, the left really have come in and taken over and imposed their order onto the internet. And it's not a particularly rational order. It's not a worldview based in logic or truth. And it's very sad, because all of the pioneers that saw so much potential in the internet are probably now either rolling in their graves or looking back on their lives and going, how did it come to this? The way it came to this was very simple. It's social media invited the hordes in. We invited the hordes in, and then, hey, guess what?
The people that really set the tone, the people that craft the narratives, call them the elites, whatever you want to call them, the people that really are the ones in control of the direction of our miserable existences right now in this world, they decided that no, having free speech, having that kind of freedom, even though it's supposed to be a fundamental component of the West, no, it's too dangerous to have that level of freedom on the internet, even in a virtual space like the internet. And getting back to social media, so MySpace, the thing about MySpace that I actually thought wasn't cancerous was it was kind of a new idea, and it was highly customizable, highly modular. You had emo kids with their crazy HTML pages, and they were just, expressing themselves. In a way, it was symbolic of like a Western individualism. Each page could look however you wanted it to look. Conformity was not a thing on MySpace. Absolutely chasing trends was, obviously, right? But it was a millennial thing. There was certainly an illusion of, free expression on that platform. And it's very interesting how MySpace, 1 minute it was on top. It was the most popular thing ever. Everyone had one. And it was good for social networking too, in a grassroots way. Like, I played in a band in college, and all of our shows were booked through MySpace. And there was something cool about it. But, like, Facebook comes along, and, you know how Facebook is. It's that sterile, just corporate, awful. It leaves a sickly taste in your mouth. Even when it first emerged, I found Facebook extremely unappealing, actually, in comparison to MySpace. And it sucked away all of that kind of grassroots energy that MySpace had, where you had multiple communities that were connecting, and it was really like there was something being built on top of that very rudimentary tech. Facebook comes along and kills that energy. And if there's anything I've noticed, it's that anything coming from the corporate manufactured mainstream, it has a way of destroying communities and replacing that with just this monolithic, synthetic, paused culture, and call it what you want. And the left are they're the ones that are actually making this happen, screaming into the void, please, we want more censorship. We want less avenues of expression. Like, that's what's happening. But in a way, the left are the puppets of this corporate, woke, globo-homo force. Because these elites, they really do rely on the normie, the NPC. They need those people to just follow that carrot on a stick. They simply are being puppeted, and that's the reason why things are so bad. That's the reason why almost every subculture in our society has been ruined, thanks to the NPCs. And who tells these people what to think? I think that's the fundamental question. Where are they getting these insane ideas from? The hoople heads, these plebeians, they are fundamental to Clown World. You cannot have Clown World without the NPC. And I guess the only way to fix things is to seize control of the media and, by proxy, the narrative, because the narrative being crafted right now is so insane and so cancerous. It's destroying everything worth two shits in our society. And that's how their rhetoric functions. It's very viral. It operates as kind of like a virus. I mean, hey, like Dawkins coined the term meme, right? And what is a meme? Well, it operates very similar to genes in terms of evolution, right? Like, memes are contagious, memes are viral, and the elites have understood this for a long time. I mean, that's what meme magic is, magic with a J. And we can never escape Clown World until we seize the means of meme production, right? Like,
history.